And this one stinks to the high heavens, because when you think about Michael Ma...
It's getting ugly for Carney. Welcome back to Moose on Loose. My name's David. Today, Mark Carney is having the CBC and a very liberal pundit on CTV turning on him after everything that's happened with Michael Ma. Carney's failures are not going unnoticed. We've got a bunch of stuff here. Let's jump into this. Starting this off, we're going to do some world updates here on what's going on in Iran with America. So we've got the G7 coming out and saying they insist on freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. This is great. They can sit around this round table and do nothing but talk. These guys need to put their money where their mouth is, get some ships out there, get some help to get this thing freed up. We've got Iran says they may target steel factories in Israel. We've got European stock market here closing lower due to the Iran conflict. Got US seeks exit deals for offshore wind leases. Mark Carney probably salivating at that. It says here in exchange for reinvesting capital into fossil fuel projects. Got Marco Rubio here saying Zelensky lied about Donbass ultimatum. United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio reported on Friday Ukrainian President Zelensky's claim that Washington told Kyiv that security guarantees depended on Ukraine's withdrawal from the Donbass was a lie. Rubio stressed that the U.S. did not tell Zelensky that the security guarantees for Ukraine can be enacted once its war with Russia has concluded. This is a mess. It's an endless mess. We can't have the Iran situation turn into the Ukraine situation. We also got Rubio saying that U.S. can achieve its Iran goals without ground troops. And I've seen some reports that it seems maybe that Israel or America have armed some of the resistance fighters fighting against the IRGC on the ground. Russia moves to ban gasoline exports from April 1st. Israel confirming strikes on Iran nuclear facility. German Chancellor Merz saying it's unlikely that U.S. and Israel will achieve regime change. There's a lot of criticism, not a lot of action coming from Germany. Iran is now allowing aid shipments through the Strait of Hormuz. Europe may escort tankers through Hormuz after the war. And we've got this one here, Trump saying Cuba is next. President Donald Trump said Cuba could be the future target, speaking at a future investment initiative. He linked the remark to U.S. military strength before asking reporters to disregard it. Cuba is next, by the way, but pretend I didn't say that. We've got Brad Redcop, conservative MP, Saskatoon West, posting this, breaking Conservatives force investigation into massive fraud into Canada's immigration system. We are going to hold the Carney Liberals to account for this fiasco. There's 153,000 individuals referred in the Auditor General's report on international student permit reforms tabled in Parliament March 23rd, suspected of international student permit fraud and non-compliance. This is ridiculous. Our country has become a complete laughingstock. So there's a lot of people in the comments here questioning if the Liberals can be held accountable because, well, they're getting away with all their corruption as it speaks. Carney has the most conflicts of interest of any prime minister in Canadian history. I won't hold my breath. The damage is done. We bankrolled our pension into India and agreed we take 60 freaking million more. A lot of Canadians are at their wits' end here, but I mean, Conservatives pushing hard. We got to just stay on it here. The problem we have is we're a high trust society and we now need to break that as a whole, which is sad, but that's the only way to get Canadians to wake up. You can't trust the government. They don't have our best interest at heart. We need Canadians to always question the government going forward because they've proven that they'll take advantage of us. This will be the biggest Canadian scandal in history when investigation is over. I don't know about that. I mean, there are some big ones here that would dwarf this one, I think. We got Daniel Falk posting this. Canada is the undisputed world leader in money printing. He says he posted Scott Stevenson's tweet on Instagram and someone complained that 2007 was a bad start date because it skews to make Canada look bad. So he went back to 1968. The numbers do not lie. So what we're looking at here, Canada is this orange color, yellowy orange. Germany's number 2. Mainland China is this blue one here. The United States is green. Japan is this teal color and orange is the European Union. This is why food costs so much money because they keep increasing the money supply, but they don't increase the production, the value. As Pierre says, you got $10, 10 apples, it's $1 apple. Well, they increase the money supply to $30, but we still have 10 apples. Now each apple is $3. We look at green peas. It used to be $1 for a bag of green peas, frozen green peas, and now it's $3.65. They increased the money supply. The production hasn't increased. The price of food has gone up. And on top of that, what are they doing on April 1st? They're increasing the industrial carbon tax. That's right, because we need to have a higher price at the grocery store. And jumping over to committee here, we've got Franco Terrazzano dropping the hammer on Bruce Fanjoy, trying to spin the industrial carbon tax as being a good thing.
Mr. Terrazzano, I've heard you mention industrial carbon pricing being the worst of all worlds on a number of occasions today. I was wondering how you would compare the world's experienced by farmers on the prairies who are dealing with drought, lower mainland BC dealing with atmospheric rivers, or across Canada, wildfires taking out entire towns.
What? no heat domes? You're not going to mention the heat dome? Come on.
Yeah, thank you so much for your question. I really appreciate it. I mean, it's awful news. And, making life more expensive in Canada with an industrial carbon tax that doesn't work doesn't help those farmers, right? Because when you increase costs for fertilizer plants, that drives up costs for farmers and makes food more expensive for families. And, added on to that, it does nothing to reduce emissions.
Checkmate there, Fanjoy. Superman's got your number. Not one hurricane made landfall last year in North America. Can atmospheric river Bruce explain that? Fanjoy's not too bright. He therefore fits in nicely with the Liberal Party. I mean, that's what they like. They like these crumb snatchers in the back who not all that smart, just follow, they'll vote, they'll stay in line. They don't really know what Carney's plan is yet. I've got a plan. We got Kirk posting this one. Breaking: Chinese EV manufacturers planning with an aggressive entry into Canada's market as deal made with Carney for only 6.1% tariff on Chinese EVs. So that's BYD, bring your dreams, I think is what that stands for in China. BYD plans 20 Canadian dealerships within a year as 6.1 tariff deal opens the floodgates. Get ready for Chinese surveillance vehicles in our country. Most cars will be under 35,000. So what they're going to do is underprice their vehicles just slightly, like 10% versus everything else, just to scoop up the market. They did this in Europe and it was very successful. They'll do the same thing here. For me, I'm not going anywhere near that stuff. I always pick Japanese vehicles because they're the best. Well, technically Canadian have a Honda CR-V, which is built in Ontario. Honda, a Japanese company. Jumping over to the NDP convention, listen to this clip. You have Avi Lewis absolutely torching Tom Mulcair. I had no idea there's some bad blood going on there.
We heard from former NDP leader Tom Mulcair. He said that, you should be in the House to take on the Liberals if you want to be a viable opposition leader. He says that the reason why you might not be running is because you're worried you won't win. Why not make the leap sooner rather than later?
Well, JP, thank you for giving me the opportunity to say that I have no intention of taking advice from Thomas Mulcair. I think that he started the process of our undoing as a party with a clear position on the progressive side of the spectrum. And I'm going to take advice from the people around me and the people in the actual NDP right now who have strong feelings about what our party needs.
Why is he mad about that? I mean, I didn't see the full clip that Mulcair said, but if it's just that, then Mulcair's right. He should be in the House. He should try to run in one of the by-elections because I think one of them he can win. It looks like he most likely would win one of them. I can't remember which one, but where's the bad blood? Something else must be going on there. Mulcair must be backing someone else, Heather McPherson or something, and that's why he's pissed off. That's what I'm guessing. Ouch, take that, Tommy boy. Moving ahead, we got Mark Nixon posting this clip here. The CBC turning on Mark Carney. This is not sunshine and rainbows here. As Mark's pointing out here, Carney will run away in the end like Trudeau, but the damage will be permanent. This is some pretty scathing stuff here.
Yeah, people seem to be talking about and far more interested in security and defense matters than we have been in a long time. And maybe that's enough to sort of persuade people that it's the right time to spend billions and billions of dollars.
So talking about Carney meeting his 2% defense spending after all these years, finally hitting 2%.
I think people feel the threat or felt the threat from Donald Trump and understand where the prime minister is going. And you see that in public opinion polls. I think it's worth noting that even with the 2% that we reached, we are just still in the bottom. I don't want to say laggards because we reached a threshold, but we're still at the bottom. And if we hadn't met the 2%, we would be dead last. I also think it's worth noting that we don't actually really have a good idea of where the money is going in fine detail. And that begs more question about the next tranche of money. The government laid out in its November budget a very huge plan to spend $350 billion extra dollars, because Justin Trudeau had pledged about $100 billion before. Where is all that money going to go? And I think that, people are not yet making the ties and, we journalists are not yet making the ties, but more money in defense meant that there was less money for pharmacare. There was no extra money for pharmacare. And there's a lot of provinces that have not signed on to the pharmacare program. So eventually people will start tying spending decisions to policy outputs.
Sure. I mean, it's a government making choices at the time we're in. And to your point, with the extra spending, there's things like submarines that still have to be purchased. And we're told that decision is coming probably in the second quarter. Chantal.
This is quite telling here. So Althea is laying this out that Carney's spending all this money on defense. because, well, Brookfield will be involved in it. They'll be getting contract. Make no doubt about it. That's why he's doing it. And she's saying, well, if we're spending all this money on defense, then pharma care is going to be getting cut or something's getting cut. And Carney just made a bunch of cuts. People are losing their jobs. People are moving out of this country. The country's completely crumbling. And Carney doesn't give a rat's because it's just all a big Brookfield grift that he's running. So whether people figure that out or not, they're going to figure out, and I mean, she just told them, now they're going to be thinking about it, that all this defense spending means that people won't be getting money put into their communities. Healthcare. The doctor wait times are still 12 hours in many places, 16 hours to see a doctor. This could go down if we didn't spend so much on submarines or ammunition or vehicles being sent over to Ukraine. We could have a better quality of life here. They made the connection here on CBC. It's only a matter of time for people to finally wake up. People talking about the defense spending here, like 5% isn't even close enough to catch up. We need 10% for years for Canada to have a small regional military. I mean, the question is, would we ever use it? Canada's too peaceful of a nation to use that military. I mean, really, if you have the big military, you want to do stuff with it to keep your nation prosperous. That's what America does. They have the biggest, mightiest military, and they do things with it, which then further makes them rich. They control areas, they control oil, the flow of resources because of the big military. Canadians are too peaceful. They would revolt if we started dropping bombs on Iran for good reason on bad terror lords, but Canadians would not be happy with that. So I don't think we'll ever have a giant military. Trouble is, Carney will be running away with a big bag of money and long-term contracts all tied to Brookfield, and Canadian taxpayers will be footing the bill for the next 100 years to pay it off. That is the problem. Now, jumping over to CTV, they have this pundit down here. This lady is about as liberal as they get. And even she's saying, this looks so bad. We're talking about Michael Ma and his comments on forced labor. And even she's saying looks very bad for the Liberals.
Sabrina, there's an old saying in politics, if you're explaining, you're losing. How does the Liberal Party explain this one?
I mean, certainly that was a very odd exchange, I think, for Michael Ma, and I think it didn't really reflect, a line of questioning that made sense in terms of the context. And so certainly it hurts us, right? Like, I think it does cause some question or cause some doubt on maybe what the Liberal cohesive messaging is on China. And I think Canadians are willing to accept a change or a departure in maybe some of the strict ways in which we've talked about dealing with China's human rights abuses and some of those things as we have advanced our trade deals. But I still don't think that this approach to questioning or this kind of, bringing things up in committee makes sense for Michael Ma or for the Liberals. So I do think that the Prime Minister's office and Liberals at large are going to have to comms manage this a little bit and decide, what is the way forward and what is the actual message that we want to be delivering to Canadians. I think he's lucky that this was, on the same week as a lot of the other issues that have happened, maybe when it comes to the Air Canada issue and some of the other things. So he's lucky it hasn't taken a life of its own. But I still think that the PMO is going to want to rein some of that conversation in.
It's amazing that even she's saying they're going to have to rein it in. They're going to have to clean up the comms here, do something with this. Every time she's on this panel, the Liberals are always doing great. Everything they've done, so great. Never a problem with the Liberals. Poilievre bad, Conservatives bad, and she can't deny it. So if she's at this point, that means that we already know this is very bad for Carney. Michael Ma screwed him over. I don't even know if Carney really cares. I mean, we saw that clip that I showed you with him getting grilled by Pierre Poilievre. He couldn't condemn the human rights abuses that go on over there. It's all about Brookfield profits to Carney.
Mel, as a former comms director, I mean, this is something that probably lands on your lap like a grenade, and you have to try and figure it out. Even though we're going into a break week next week, so, the Prime Minister won't probably have to face any questions on it in the House of Commons. This is still not something that they want to have to deal with, clearly.
Carney has appeared in the House of Commons 7 times this year. 7 times. He is so incredibly lazy. Flies around the world, gallivanting around, burning money, doing nothing, wasting our tax dollars.
No, and this one stinks to the high heavens, because when you think about Michael Ma and who he is, he was a conservative. So he knows full well what the conservative policy has been for years on the Uyghur genocide. The fact that there is unequivocally a genocide in China against Uyghur Muslims right now, and there has been for years. It's extremely well documented. And the conservatives have been advocating for years to raise more awareness about this and to ensure that trade with China does not include items that have been made as a result of forced labor of the Uyghurs who were facing this genocide. So Michael Ma absolutely knew that was the reality and knew that as a conservative. Now he's a liberal. I've seen a lot of spin from liberals on this, that he's like, oh, he's new, he doesn't really know how committee works, like, let's brush this off as just a mistake. No, it's not. There is committee prep, okay? Before every committee meeting, caucus members go to prep where they talk about what their questions are going to be. He would have talked about this, which means this was the government's strategy. And if it wasn't the government's strategy and he went rogue, then that stinks even more. And there should be some very serious questions asked about who told him to say these things.
If this wasn't the government's strategy, then Carney would have come out and said he doesn't agree with Michael Ma or whatever, something like that. Clearly, this was Michael Ma acting out the government's plans. Michael Ma acting as an agent of China. Throw on a Chinese military uniform and give him a hat that says United Front Work Department. And with that, I wanted to correct myself here. So I was mentioning this, the 11 compromised members of government, and saying Ma would be potentially the 12th. So Michael Ma used to be in the government back, I believe in 2019 is when he was elected. So he could be part of this. He lost his next re-election in 21, so he technically could be a part of this 11 compromised members of government. So moving ahead here, we got a bunch of stories from the week that I haven't had time to put on the channel. It's just been so many things popping up. Let's get to some of these. We got quite some bizarre news coming out of America. Donald Trump saying that Iran's new leaders have sent him a gift. Well, America a gift.
They're going to make a deal. They're going to make a deal. They did something yesterday that was amazing, actually. They gave us a present, and the present arrived today. And it was a very big present worth a tremendous amount of money. And I'm not going to tell you what that present is, but it was a very significant prize. And they gave it to us, and they said they were going to give it. So that meant one thing to me: we're dealing with the right people.
Is that nuclear related?
No, it wasn't nuclear related. It was oil and gas related. And it was a very nice thing they did. But what it showed me is that we're dealing with the right people. Because, you know, you don't know, because the leadership was killed, all gone. Khomeini, all gone, as the expression goes, the past supreme leader. And then the new supreme leader was racked up, at a minimum, racked up pretty good. And
so the new supreme leader, which was his son, I believe got his leg kablowied, but is still alive.
Everyone else was gone. And then many of the people in the third tier, because they're going to make a deal. They're going to make a deal.
I mean, this is kind of bizarre. I don't know. I guess they sent him some sort of oil and gas, what, $1 billion? Who knows? What did they send him? Who knows? Are they just trying to pay to end the conflict? I don't know, maybe. You don't have to take Carrick Island. We will gift it to you. Build a huge military base if you would like. I wonder. Moving ahead, we've got breaking. The far-right Danish party has quadrupled their vote in today's share of general election in Denmark, despite polling lowly. They advocate for closing Denmark's borders, limiting asylum, and deporting refugees. The Danish people want their country back. So we're seeing a resurgence in multiple countries because people are realizing this woke leftist nonsense is, well, destroying all of our lives. Now, looking at the results, someone's got it here. The far-right bloc has now 30 seats in the Danish parliament, which is just 8 seats fewer than the ruling Social Democrats. But they are still far from being in power there. We've got Marine Le Pen's right-wing National Party has won over 40 local mayor races across France so far, their best results ever. National Rally's been leading in the polls as the most popular party. The French people want their country back. And we've got this out of Germany. The right-wing anti-Islamic migration party just surged in tonight's West Germany state elections, making surprising plus 11-point gain. The AfD has nearly doubled its seats from just a few years ago.
Muss ich sagen, das ist der 18 Uhr Jubel den Spitzenkandidaten Jan Bollinger.
Ach ja, das ist gut, ja. Prima, sehr gut.